Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mack Story.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So today I'm going to start a series. It's either going to be 2 or 3 part series. Not sure. Had to wait and see. But I'm going to break this one into a couple of series. And I'm basically talking to you about some content from my book, Defining Influence. The subtitle of that book is Increasing Your Influence Increases Your Options. So I'm going to talk to you about some content that comes in chapter 6 in that book. And if you read a lot of my books or you're familiar with my books, that's actually my first book. It doesn't have the typical 30 chapter, 3 pages per chapter format. If you're new to the podcast, but you do know about my books. This book actually has 19 chapters, and it's about 250 pages. And the chapters are uneven. Just depends on what I was talking about. But this one's going to be the chapter title of chapter 6 is Lead Yourself First. So that's what this 2 or 3 part series is going to be. And the subtitle of this chapter is Respond Based on Values, Not Feelings. I'll be talking about what I learned. A good bit of this is what I learned from my first book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the most important lesson I ever learned about being proactive versus reactive. So that's kind of what this chapter is about. But I got some stories about getting it wrong with my son in here. And I'm not just reading the book to you. I'm going to read some stuff from the book, but I'm going to add a lot to the book. That's why I don't know if it's going to be 2 or 3 episodes to get through this content. But when I start talking about, especially those stories with my son, I'll be adding a lot more than is in the book. And may not cover everything that's in the chapter, but still gonna give you some content. So let's get started. So before you can motivate and grow yourself, you must control yourself. That's what I struggled with when I was young. Actually, I struggled with it until probably 2009 or 10, and didn't really get to work on it hard until 2012. And I wrote this book in 2014. So it wasn't too long after I had really started figuring that out when I wrote this book. But I could think back into my past and pull out these stories. And mainly they're stories I'm talking about today where I got it wrong. And there's nothing wrong with talking about your stories you got it wrong. A lot of people tend to learn more from our mistakes than our successes. So this book got plenty of the stuff I did wrong in it. And I got a lot more stories that I can share with you that's not in the book. But the hardest work you will ever do is on you. Hardest work I'll ever do is on me. You and I got the same problem. It's us. We are the biggest problem in our lives. Whether we know it or not, whether we admit it or not, it's a fact. Whatever's going on in our lives, the choices we made up leading up to today is what led us there. Yes, there's going to be some things that happen to you you have no control over, but you absolutely have control over how you deal with and process those things. And those things are what cause most of our problems as time keeps passing. But the only person you have 100% control and influence over is you. The only person I have 100% control and influence over is me. However, doing the right thing at the right time is often much easier said than done. I guarantee you already know this. Odds are you probably know about everything I'm about to teach you. But are you applying these lessons that I'm going to teach you? How well are you applying them or not applying them? Some things say easy, but they do hard. And when I finally slowed down enough to realize I was involved in every problem I ever had, I truly discovered after that what needed to change most was me. And that's a capital M-E with an exclamation point. And when I figured that out, playing in my head back in those days, when I made that discovery were the words that I've already shared with you many times. If you've been listening, I mean, I've got nearly 500 episodes, and so if you've listened to all of them, which I know I've talked to some people who've listened to all of my episodes more than twice. That's a lot of listening. That's a lot of hours, but those people ought to be getting some tremendous results in their life if they're doing more than listening. If they're applying the stuff that they're listening to. But playing in my head when I made that discovery were these words from Dr. Stephen R. Covey, author of the 7 Habits. He says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. We can use this space to choose our response. And I think he learned that from Viktor Frankl, author of Man's Search for Meaning. But I mean, all this stuff, all the good stuff been getting passed between people pretty much since the beginning of time. That's just the way it is. The good stuff, it doesn't go away. You might have heard there's nothing new under the sun. And when it comes to principles, that's a fact. Principles are principles. But that's the most important lesson I ever learned right there, those words I just shared from Dr. Covey. And I share them a lot. And that's the reason I share them a lot, because they mean a lot to me. But back then, when I was really discovering this and starting to put it into play, I was slowly but surely becoming proactive. And when we choose to be proactive, we are choosing to respond based on values. And the key here is those values are aligned with natural laws and principles. We don't respond based on our feelings when we're proactive. But to understand what it means to be proactive, it's helpful to understand what the opposite of being proactive is. And that's to be reactive. And habit 1 of the 7 habits is actually be proactive. That's why I shared that quote a minute ago from Dr. Covey. That's where it come out of habit 1. Habit 1 in his book is all about the stuff I'm talking to you about now. But I'm sharing with you, how I got it wrong when I was reactive. I'm going to and talk about how I would maybe have done it now, being proactive. But the opposite of being proactive is to be reactive. When we're reactive, we choose our response just like when we're proactive, except the difference is instead of being based on values aligned with natural laws and principles, we're responding when we're reactive based on feelings that we have in the moment. So it changes everything when you're reactive versus proactive. And that was what I had to do. And it's still a big challenge for me is to constantly be proactive, because it's hard. It's easy to be reactive. But when you do the hard things, your life will be easy. When you do the easy things, your life's going to be hard. And there are always 2 ways of dealing with the same problem relative to this lesson. You can be proactive or you can be reactive. When you have a problem, that's what's going to happen. You're going to be one of those 2 things. You can't be both at the same time. You do one and then turn around and do the other, and then turn around and do the other, go back and forth and do a lot of different things proactively and reactively. You can definitely do that and have some kind of mix. But the more proactive you are and the less reactive you are, the better the outcome is going to be. Whether it seems like it or not, it's a fact. Each way will produce a different and natural consequence. That's just what happens. You make a choice, it comes with a natural consequence. Being proactive will make things better. Being reactive will make things worse. That's how life works. Being proactive can change your life for the better if you fully understand and apply the associated principles. The more you apply them, the better your results will be. The less you apply them, the worse your results will be. And you've already been proactive, whether you knew it or not, whether you were familiar with this term at a deep level or not. You've already been proactive in your life. Whether you made choices that improve relationships, added to your success without trampling, devaluing, or taking away from others, or cause you to be effective rather than ineffective. If you've done any of those things, you've been proactive. And I probably could make a list that could take me all day to tell you. I mean, there's millions of ways to be proactive, and them same opportunities give you a chance to be reactive. It's a choice. But you really got to learn this stuff, and you got to internalize it. It's like a mind muscle. You got to train it. It don't just happen. You don't just hear this episode and flip a switch and you just going to be proactive the rest of your life, every situation, every choice you make. Not how it works. You got to work on it, just like going to the gym, building up a regular muscle. You got to work on it to build it up. You got to work on it to keep it up. And if you want to get stronger with that muscle, you got to work on it some more. That's the way this mental muscle works. We're talking about being proactive versus reactive. An easy to understand physical law is gravity. Everyone understands the natural law and principle of gravity and how it works. You figure that out on your own as a kid. Before anybody teaches it to you, you learn about gravity the hard way. But it's easy to see it in action. And it's easy to prove the consequences of being aligned with gravity or being out of alignment with gravity. It's a principle. For example, you could choose to stand on top of the edge of a 1,000-foot tall cliff beside the Grand Canyon. One of those, if you ever been out there, I mean, they're all over the place. You can walk up to the edge, it'd be 1,000 foot straight down. And Grand Canyon is not the only place like that. There's a lot of places like that. You could think of out in Utah, it's Zion National Park. There's a lot of places like that. Being in alignment with natural laws and principles will ensure you remain safe and enjoy an awesome view when you're on the edge of that cliff. You got to be in alignment with natural laws and principles. I mean, you got to understand gravity. You could also attempt to defy the law of gravity by stepping off the edge of the cliff. And see, as you're listening to this, you think this is so silly. It's common sense. It is. These other principles I'm talking about are common sense too, but most people don't study them enough to understand it. Because as soon as you understand it, you say, oh, that's common sense. Why would I ever be reactive when I understand the consequence versus the consequence of being proactive? I'll always be proactive. That ain't how it works because we have emotions and feelings and all that kind of stuff get in the way. But when you're on the edge of that cliff, the law of gravity will determine your natural consequence, not you. You would have, what would happen if you stepped off? You'd immediately make your way to the bottom of the cliff. You'd be down in the canyon. And you ain't got nothing to do with that except you made a choice to get out of alignment with the law of gravity. As long as you're standing on the ground, you're going to be fine. You step out there to that open space, off the edge, you head to the bottom. You ain't got nothing to say about it. That's the way all these principles of human influence work. The problem is there's usually more than one principle at work. It's a combination, kind of like math or chemistry. You change out one thing in the equation and all kinds of things change. But the outcome would be the same whether you chose to believe in gravity or whether you chose not to believe in gravity. Doesn't matter what you believe, same thing's going to happen. That's what you have to really understand about these principles of human influence. It's really what all this personal growth and leadership development content, it's really what it's all about. So we have 100% control of our choices. No one can ever take our freedom to choose our response when something happens. No one can take that away from us. When something happens, we have the freedom to choose our response. It's up to us. We choose our actions, but natural laws and principles will always determine our consequences. No matter what you think, no matter how you think you're going to get around it, that's the way it works. That's why you got to learn, study, apply, see what happens, start trying to realize all the combination of principles in a situation. One of the things I hear a lot of people say, well, I tried that and it didn't work. Well, that's because there was like some number of other principles that you needed to have in conjunction with the one that you knew about to actually make it work. But you may have only tried one thing, and the other things you may have did the opposite, and you didn't even know it because you don't know about it. There's a lot going on when it comes to human influence. You already understand this. Physical laws and principles are much easier to see and understand than the psychological laws and principles which guide human interaction. But these psychological laws can still be seen, felt, experienced, and they're self-evident. That means anybody would understand it when you see it. So I'm going to share a story with you, and I'm going to go into it as far as I can before I kind of reach the around the 30-minute time limit. I usually try to keep these podcasts to, unless I'm doing interviews with people. When I'm doing it myself, I aim for around 30 minutes. So I'm going to get into this story somewhere in here. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to stop and come back for part 2. And even that one, I may come back for part 3. So in 2006, remember this, I didn't discover the stuff I'm talking to you about, meaning personal growth, leadership development books. I didn't discover this stuff until 2008. I was born in 1969, and I didn't discover this stuff till 2008. 39 years old when I discovered it. But the story I'm about to tell you was a couple years before I even come across this content. And it's hard for me to believe I lived 39 years of my life without ever hearing about this stuff, without ever being exposed to it, not being aware of it. That's one reason I write so many books. I share so much stuff on social media. By the way, if you didn't know about it, I got a lot of stuff going on TikTok now. Same stuff I put out on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and X. It's the same stuff. But some people, get on one social media and not the other one. So I put the same stuff everywhere. You decide where you want to follow. But in 2006, my wife Rhea and I purchased my son from a previous marriage. We call him our son, but it's my son from a previous marriage. To help you understand this story, you need to know that. So when Eric was around 5 years old, me and his mother, we got divorced. So now I'm talking about my current wife, Rhea. As I record this, we've been together 26 years now. But this was back in 2006. So we had been together 6 years at that time. We met in 2000. So in 2006, Rhea and I purchased Eric, my son Eric, an extended cab 4-wheel drive truck for his 15th birthday. And the reason was to reward him for his outstanding academic accomplishments up to that point. We had a deal. Basically, when he got 16, if he had made straight A's, he'd get a brand new truck. If he had made a B, and we're talking about on his report card, every B was going to cost him a year. But the thing is, up at his 15th birthday, I wanted to get him a truck that he could practice with. Basically, as a learner, I'd drive it normally as my vehicle, knowing that when he got 16, it was going to be his. So I was just driving it during that time. But by his 15th birthday, he had made all A's except for 3 B's. So he should be getting a 3-year-old truck. And actually, the one he picked out that he wanted was actually was older than that, which was, that was fine with me. Made it cost a little less, and he was happy with it. So he could have got a little nicer truck, but that was just part of the deal. I had always told him that as a motivator for him as he was growing up. I mean, he was really smart and sharp. He could make whatever grades he wanted to make, and that's what I knew. So we made that deal, and he was good with it. So we planned to let him learn to drive that truck again the whole time. That was the whole point of it, because I didn't want to just let him learn to drive one vehicle, and then when he got 16, give him another vehicle that he was not familiar with. So I was trying to be proactive back in those days. I didn't understand it, but I was trying to be proactive and respond based on values and of him being safe when he became a driver by himself. So we planned to let him learn to drive it for a year while he had his learner's license before we handed him the keys at age 16, when he would officially be able to get his driver's license and drive alone. If you're a parent of a teenager that's turned 16, you know what I was up against. It's different when you're the 16-year-old, but when you're the parent, you got a whole lot of different things you're thinking about. So shortly after getting his truck, Eric made a poor choice. At age 15, he chose to sneak his mother's car, not my wife Rhea, but his actual mom. She lived about 20, 30 miles, maybe 30 miles from where Rhea and I lived, in a different little town. So Eric was actually staying with her. Why, he stayed with us a week and his mom a week, on and off, back and forth, basically from age 5 to 16. So this time I'm talking to you now, he was 15. So he was still staying a week with us, a week with his mom, week with us, week with his mom, kind of thing. So, but at age 15, he chose to sneak his mom's car out of the garage one night while his mom and stepdad, sister, they were all sleeping. And he drove 25 miles away to another town, not the one I lived in, not the one she lived in, but another one, to hang out with his friends in a nearby town. So his mother and I had divorced, like I said, when he was 5 years old. First thing I did was what I always did back then. And I ain't proud of this, but this is who I was. And I know one thing, there's a lot of people still like this. And hopefully if you're listening to this podcast and you're like this, you keep listening and you actually want to change for the better. But I immediately overreacted. First thing I did was I took his truck away. I didn't like that deal. Not back in those days. I mean, I let that irritate me, meaning I chose to be irritated that he would break trust like that. And I guess he thought he did it with his mom wouldn't impact me, but it still made it was a big deal with me. So the first thing I did, I took his truck away, and he ain't had it long. And to make it clear that he wouldn't be getting it back, I went and traded it on my dream car at the time. So this was 2006, and I wanted a 2003 Corvette Z06. It was a 50th anniversary model, cool car. I had never even been in a Corvette until I pulled that truck up to trade it on that silver 2003 Corvette Z06. And I left there that day. But when I got into the test drive it, that was the first time I'd ever even been in a Corvette. But I had wanted one my whole life. Anyway, his poor choice was followed by another poor choice on my part. I didn't know then what I know now. And I chose to be reactive based on feelings and my misaligned values. And it took like 2 seconds for me to come up with that idea. I definitely overreacted. This was one poor choice that ruptured my relationship with Eric big time. And if you'd have talked to me back then, I would have said I valued that, but my actions and my behavior would say I valued something else. And I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. And I would continue to make many poor choices that ensured my relationship with Eric remained ruptured for the next 4 long years. And I've got couple of podcasts where I talk about that. I think one of them's in the 160s or 170s where I actually interviewed Eric to talk about rebuilding that relationship with him after those 4 years. And then there's another one I can't remember. It's somewhere underneath episode 50, somewhere between probably 10 and 50, somewhere in there. There's one where I just talked about losing my relationship with Eric. I think that's where it's at. I can't remember all these episodes. This is the 8th year I've been recording, so I can't keep up with it all. But it is out there. But I should have considered Eric's track record before I got reactive. I should have considered the overall situation and many more variables that I didn't care at that time. I wasn't worried about none of that stuff. However, I didn't pause to reflect on those things. I simply reacted based on my feelings. And unfortunately, at that time, I valued control more than I valued our relationship. That was my whole problem. Cost me that relationship with him for 4 years. I wasn't focused on our relationship. I was focused. First thing that mattered is I was in control. I was the dad. I would give anything to relive those years with Eric, knowing what I know now. And I certainly would love to have started learning all the stuff I'm talking to you about before he was even born. Would have been a completely different life. I would have had a different life. My relationship with him would have been different. Even with his mother, everything in my life would have been different. But can't go back and change anything. But once you figure it out, you can start making changes and make those days that hadn't come yet better. And then if you really want to do something serious and help the world, you can start sharing it with other people like I'm doing with you right now. But going back and reliving those years, that isn't possible. Ain't going to happen. But helping others learn from my mistakes is possible. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode here. There is going to be at least a part 2 and potentially a part 3. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And I'm on next week's podcast. I'm going to pick up kind of where we left off, but about a year later when Eric actually turned 16. Tell you what happened then. And it was kind of a slightly different repeat. Different situation, different circumstances, but same problem with me being reactive. That's what's common between these two things. So I had another big issue where I got it wrong. So make sure you come back, listen to next week's episode. Hope you find some value in today. If you really want to dive in deep, I encourage you, order a paperback copy of Defining Influence. Subtitle, Increasing Your Influence Increases Your Options. Order this book. It's $20. Turn the pages real slow. Highlight them. Underline stuff. Fold the pages. Make it a tool. Go through it about once a year. And it'll help make your life better. I don't mind selling people books. Books have changed my life. I understand the value. If you get one meaningful thing out of that, any book, not just my book, but if you get one meaningful thing out of any book, doesn't matter how much that book costs, that book was worth it. And I know what's in my books. I've been mining gold since 2008. 18 years I've been reading every day, applying this stuff, trying to make my life better, trying to help other people make their life better. My books are full of this stuff. Somebody told me my book's full of the good stuff without the fluff. So you can marinate at your own pace if you get the book and go through it. All right. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mack Story's Blue Collar Leadership Series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mack's books, programs, special offers, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.